got to talk about Jaden Ivey. I
Yep.
feel like that's the one thing that a lot of people probably want us to talk about. What were your overall thoughts? Like one with the injury against the Magic, and maybe two, like a bigger picture of like where this team could possibly end up in terms of like competing for the playoffs.
Yeah, so obviously the initial reaction is, "Oh, no," right? Like, just immediately just devastation for Ivy, for, just for the season that he was having, especially just like, coming off of the illness. He was playing his best basketball of his life. But, upon learning more about the injury, once we learned it was a broken fibula, that nothing else was broken, there's no ligament damage, no tissue damage, immediately, there's a sense of relief. Now, according to, the Pistons, he's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. It's a type of injury where the timeline for return varies, very much case by case. I know Alex Ovechkin just returned off of like 4 to 6 weeks from when he broke his fibula. Now it's different because hockey is just a different sport, and how you're managing the load bearing than the basketball. You rely much more on your knees, in my opinion, in basketball, especially when you're talking about, jumping off the ground, relying off your athleticism, which is a big part of Jaden Ivey's game. So all that to say, we have no clue when he'll actually be back, but I do think it says a lot that the Pistons are not ruling him out on coming back this season. In fact, they hope he can come back. And thus far, obviously, in the 2 games that they've been without him, they've been able to weather the storm. I think that this group can very much still keep on the trajectory that they're on, but I think it's going to take not only guys like Tobias Harris to step up, but I think you'll need, improved. I think you'll need more of Asar Thompson implemented into the lineup and just into, your game plan as a whole. And I think that just naturally happens as the season goes on, as his minute restrictions, get looser, as he's in better shape. He's already, showcasing, especially in that game against Minnesota last night. We'll talk about that in a bit, I'm sure, but he looked sensational. But you'll also need offensive, contributions from guys like Simone Fontecchio, from, if Marcus Sasser is going to get significant shine, you need his 3-point shooting to be a big part of what you have going there. Like, you need guys to step up. When you lose a 20-point a game scorer, you're generally not going to get that from one person. That's generally going to be made up by a committee. So, I think that's the biggest thing. I think the prospects of the Pistons going out and making a big move to fill that gap doesn't make much sense to me. I definitely think getting like a secondary ball handler is something that you would probably need, but if you're spending anything more than a second round pick or getting some swaps in exchange, I just don't think it's necessarily worth it for where the Pistons are at, especially with needing to, they still need to acquire assets, which I think they're in a position to do without necessarily having to give anyone up. But overall, I would say the biggest thing that this kind of throws question marks as far as big picture is, what does this mean for Jaden Ivey, and any thoughts of like the extension, right? And I think a lot of it's now going to come back to, when does he come back? What does he look like when he comes back? And is this something that will affect him long term? More than likely, since again there's no, ligament damage, no tissue damage, I would say when he comes back, he should be able to look very similar to, the Jaden Ivey we saw before the injury. It just, the timing of it couldn't be worse. But again, the circumstances most certainly could have been worse.
I hate that he got injured because I felt like once he came back on that West Coast trip, especially against the Phoenix game, I felt like he was playing the best ball of his career. Like
Oh
just
yeah.
just the way he was shooting the basketball, hitting outside perimeter shots. I hate that he got injured. Honestly, I know some people want to label Cole Anthony as a dirty player. I really don't think he's a dirty player.
Not at all.
I think it was just a thing of him trying to make a play on the ball. Was it a bonehead play? Sure. But you could tell that he felt like a piece of crap. I mean, like he was like visibly upset. Like a
He
lot
was
of
as
people,
devastated as anybody.
he really was. I'm glad you did mention Alex Ovechkin because I did see some Pistons fans bring that up. I would say Alex Ovechkin is one of one.
He is a
Well,
freak of nature.
yeah, not to say that Jaden Ivey isn't a freak of nature. Alec Ovechkin, I mean, when you talk hockey, I mean, you bring his name up with like Sidney Crosby. and like Wayne Gretzky, because those guys are just like one-of-one athletes. And to your point, hockey is a much different sport. And I believe like if Jaden Ivey does come back this year, I think it'll be like around that April timetable, like that
Mhm.
that would check out, like reevaluation in 4 weeks, rehab, and we all know what the type of athlete Jaden Ivey is, the type of worker that he is. I know you guys have probably been around the team, seeing him in pregame warmups, talking to the media. Like the guy
Mhm.
is just a basketball junkie. At the end of the day, he wants to be better, and I'm sure that the Pistons are really going to miss him. And
Yeah.
it's it's so satisfying to see this team still find ways to win at the end of the day without their second best leading scorer in Jaden Ivey. But man, my initial reaction was I was upset. Like I wasn't even hyped after the Orlando win, even though they spanked our ass like 7 times in a row and we broke that streak. Like I was visibly like upset. Like I didn't sleep that night. I was just like, man, what are we gonna do now? Like, see, a lot of people like season's over. Like we're not making the play in. I saw a lot of people saying just tank for Cooper Flag, like the season's over. But this team's still, competing and trying to, get into the playoffs, and I love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 6 of their last 7 games, which is something that they haven't done, since Blake Griffin was having his, MVP caliber season in a Pistons uniform. If we weren't getting the production of Malik Beasley to the level that the Pistons have gotten, this would be a genuine crisis. However, when you have guys that are stepping up in the ways that they are, Jalen Duren, to his credit, at least offensively, is playing some pretty good basketball over his last couple of outings. You're again Asar Thompson, and the level of play that we're seeing from him on both sides of the court. Ron Holland continues to get better as the season goes on, and his shooting is looking more reliable as each game goes on too. I think there's a lot of factors that go in, and I think I think the credit has to go to JB Bickerstaff and his coaching staff of being able to have that continuity and to keep guys focused and engaged and to be able to fight through that type of adversity, because adversity was just this team's worst enemy over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I do agree. I felt like if like you lost a player, like there's no way they go in a 3 game win streak. There's no way that they come back from that Charlotte game. If that was a team last year or even the year before that, like if there's anything that would go wrong, like I think we would probably both agree that it would just be a Pistons loss, and we'd probably sit up here saying like, "What's wrong with this team?" But they're just finding ways to win without key players on the roster, and I think it's really important.